What are you seeing with Mac Jones that you go, oh, that's portable, that'll work regular season, preseason, I like that?
Well, I think Mac Jones is not a mystery. I think everybody knows what he is and what he would have to be in the NFL, Colin. And that means he'd have to master the subtleties, the nuances, the disciplines of the position. He'd have to play really efficiently from the pocket. We know he throws the ball with precise accuracy. Last night's game was, and I actually watched the tape of all his throws from last night already, and that was a pitch and catch game. The Eagles played soft zone coverage. They just played shells. They rushed four. They couldn't get anywhere near him. So last night was just pitch and catch. But the one thing that he does do well, and it showed up last night on a few throws, but you saw it in college as well, is he has a pretty good feel for throwing into zone windows. He has a good sense of the timing that's required to do that and where to place the ball. And as I said, you saw that on a couple of throws last night. But beyond that, last night didn't tell you much other than he got more experience playing in the NFL.
I will tell you, I thought Zach Wilson, as the pocket collapsed around him last week, showed a lot of poise. You know, they call it a muddy pocket. He's got a nice little arm. The ball comes out really fast. What did you make of Zach Wilson? He doesn't have the best supporting cast.
No, but I think you hit on something that he will have to become good at, which he was not good at in college, and that's playing in a muddied pocket. Because normally when that happens, his efficiency decreases. That's what his college tape showed. He wasn't under duress a lot in college, but when he was, his game suffered. What you saw in his first start, he only threw 9 balls. What you saw in college. He has light, quick feet on his drop and his set. He's got a live, loose arm. He has an easy delivery. That'll be the 49ers style offense, Colin. So there'll be a lot of boot action. He'll be good at that because of his feet and his ability to throw effectively on the run. He's an easy thrower on the move.
All right, so let's go to Trey Lance and the 49ers, since you we'll pivot to that since you mentioned it. He's obviously a big, strong athlete, had one big over-the-top play. My takeaway was he was a little uneven. That was my takeaway. What was yours?
You're correct. He was a little unsettled overall in the pocket. He was under a little bit of pressure, but by NFL standards, that's not really pressure. He was efficient when the primary read was there. He was hesitant, and he hurried himself, hurried his mechanics, played a little fast when he had to come off the primary read. And I thought that on some throws that were short throws, he threw it too hard. He was a little too much of a fastball pitcher.
Yeah.
Need some work on his pace and his touch.
All right, so everybody's talking about Justin Fields. I thought he was a little anxious early, although I'll give him a break because the Chicago stadium sold out. I mean, they treated him like it was, NFC Championship. So there was
royalty.
Yeah, I mean, and let's be honest, Chicago's a great sports city. Talk radio's big in that city. He's been the talk for a month. I was told by somebody I trust he was a little lost for 2 weeks. He's found his footing. I'll tell you, he's got a lot of skills. That's my takeaway. There's a lot there to work with. Whether the Bears can protect him up front, I don't know. But there's a lot I like when I watch him. Your thoughts?
Yeah, there's no question he's got traits. And I think he's a really good example. And I was actually talking to a former NFL coach about this, and he made a point that I thought was great. He sort of speaks to the difference at this point in time between how evaluators see him and how a play caller might see him. Because a play caller might look at him and think there's only so many things I can do until he can really settle in, whereas an evaluator looks at the traits. I remember after last week's game on social media, everybody was talking about his mobility as if that was news. We know he's mobile. That was not a scoop based on what he did last week. I thought his best throw, it was not a difficult read, but I thought his best throw was actually an incompletion on a sail route where he really placed it beautifully to the receiver with pace and touch, a firm touch throw, as we call it. It was just really well defended, but I thought that was his best throw. The touchdown he threw was a scheme throwback. You could have made that throw, Colin. That was just an easy throw to a wide open receiver. But, he moves around very well. He's a big, big athlete. That's the thing. He's close to 230 pounds.
Yeah. We talked about that about a month ago when Joy and I saw him walk around the field. We're like, other players are looking at that going, yeah, that guy looks like a franchise quarterback. And so does Trevor Lawrence. I found it hard to evaluate what I saw because Cleveland Cleveland's backups could start for Jacksonville probably in many instances. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, he made a couple of nice throws. What about Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, I think, it's funny. Just when I talk about these quarterbacks now, I'm just speaking to their play on the field in the last game. These are not definitive statements about their future, which everybody is so quick to make after one preseason game. I thought Lawrence was a little uneven. His first sack was on him because the read was to the left, and he just stayed on Marvin Jones Jr., who was in the slot. He stayed on him too long when he had another throw to that side of the read progression. But that's to be expected with a young quarterback. But I thought he did a good job on what we call spot throws to the outside, because a lot of those outside throws, outside the numbers, you're not waiting for the receiver, Colin. Those are spot throws. You're throwing it to a spot. I remember Ron Jaworski always telling me you could make those throws blindfolded. And I thought he did a good job on those kinds of throws.
All right. For the sake of this segment, I want to talk Jordan Love because we really didn't see him. He didn't dress last year. So it was, again, hard to evaluate because Houston's not very good. I don't think they're going to be brilliantly coached. And Green Bay is well coached and has better players. But, he made some of those Mac Jones throws last night over the backer in front of the secondary guys. He showed some touch. I mean, I thought he looked pretty good. I thought they set him up for success. What did you make of Jordan Love?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because they're big on the play-action pass game. Very rhythmic, very timing-based. I thought he looked very comfortable executing that part of the offense. He made a really good seam throw to Sternberger. It was a middle seam throw versus cover two. No middle hole defender carried Sternberger, so he was open in the seam, but it was a well-thrown ball, a firm touch throw. To me, the questions with Love, and he's not going to be the starter unless something dramatic happens, but I think the questions with him will be late in the down pocket efficiency when he has to stay in the pocket a little longer and work through things. And I think his decision-making off second reaction movement. I think those are two things that if he were to have to play any meaningful snaps or any meaningful games, I think those two things we'd have to wait and see about.
Okay. I want to throw one at you because Carson Wentz will come back. I wasn't terribly high on Jacob Eason out of college. I watched him a lot at Washington because I'm from the Pacific Northwest. Big arm, big body, was very good on script when Chris Peterson would write it up. But when second half, he's off script, he's got to make some either cognitive or just quick judgment throws. He got into trouble. His accuracy could dip. Left to his own devices and sort of his traits sometimes, I didn't think he was really an NFL franchise quarterback. But people are talking and raving about his arm in Indianapolis. What do you see with him?
Well, he's got traits. And by the way, his performance, again, it's one preseason game, but I know people get excited about one game. He was the best of all these quarterbacks last week. His performance was really, really good. He's a pocket player. What he did last week, which was very good, is he stood in the pocket. He showed a lot of pocket toughness. He threw the ball exceptionally well. One thing he's always needed to work on and still does, although I thought it was a little better, but he still needs work, are pace and touch throws. He tends to be a one-speed thrower.
Yeah.
But he is strong in the pocket. He can drive the football when he's accurate, and sometimes that's a question, but when he is, he looks really, really good because he's 6'5", he's 235, he looks the part. You know that. He just looks the part. And I met him when he was in 11th grade, and he looked the part in 11th grade.
It's funny, we forget about this. It's not only what organization that you land at as a young quarterback that matters, but it's the coach. Brian Daboll deserves a lot of credit for having patience with Josh Allen. We forget. When Frank Reich left Carson Wentz, he wasn't the same quarterback. Jacob Eason now has Frank Reich. And by the way, what you're saying, you forget this, is that this kid could have fallen in the perfect hands as a backup to Wentz for 2 years. This is what Aaron Rodgers did. He was behind a guy. They had a good quarterback. I mean, it sounds like when I hear you talk about Jacob Eason, you have more faith in him than many do.
Well, it's not fair. I mean, he's got traits, and I'm a big believer in coaching. You know that, Colin. We've been doing this a long time. It's one reason I feel very confident about Justin Fields, because John DeFilippo is the quarterback coach in Chicago, and I think he's one of the absolute best in the NFL coaching quarterbacks. And I think that is so, so important for a young quarterback's development. So I feel good about the situation Fields is in. If Eason has to play, I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's going to be phenomenal. No one can answer that. But I think he's being well coached and well